So I'm watching Monday Night Football, right? And sometimes, especially if you're a content creator, you're a radio host, or someone that works in sports media or media in general, we like to be right. We don't want to say that we're wrong. We want all our takes to hit. We want all our opinions to be correct because it gives you this feeling of vindication, right? Like, ooh, I called it. Ooh, I was right. And we want that. We do. We're human beings. We want that. But I think it's time. You have to be able to look at something and go, okay, maybe I was wrong. And I say this about organizations in sports and coaches in sports. It's not a matter of making mistakes, but it's seeing that it's a mistake, not holding on too long, and moving on. The Broncos, Russell Wilson, it's a mistake. It's not going well. They bring in Sean Payton to kind of remedy it. Still not going well. Boom, he's out after a year. They take the huge cap hit. And now they're going to be in a position next year, still rookie quarterback, emerging defense, and the most cap space in the NFL. You figured out, you tried it, you took a swing, didn't work, boom, you move on. I think it's time we all sit there and we have to start looking at maybe Tua wasn't a system quarterback. The Miami Dolphins have had an NFL low. They just can't score on offense, right? An NFL low 7 points a game since he left. That's still with Mike McDaniel. That's still with Tyreek Hill. That's still with Jaden Waddle. That's still with everybody. This was a playoff team last year. We all agreed. We obviously loved the receivers. We loved the head coach. And yet, Tua's out, and the team can't score. Again, last night, they're playing the Tennessee Titans. Can't score. And that's a Will Levis, at least to start, led football team. And you can't score. And they lose to them. So at what point do we start to say, okay, we gave Tua almost no credit when they were winning. So now when do we start giving Tua credit now that they're not winning and they look way worse without him? Like, can't score. We've always done this throughout the history of sports. We judge impact. There's multiple ways that we do it. But one of the ways we judge impact is, what does it look like when you're there and you're not there? This is LeBron's thing for years. What was Cleveland with LeBron and what was Cleveland post-LeBron? And right now, Tua and the Dolphins, like with the Dolphins post-Tua, look horrible. 7 points a game. Tyreek Hill's there. Jalen Waddle's there. Again. And we give these coaches, as we're starting to get, establish who's really the best in the business, there's guys who come in and prove their system works. And then there's guys who prove their systems work with multiple players. And then there's the guys who even give an extra notch to the guys who are winning, even when not just the regular players aren't there, but they're dealing with clear backups. Kevin O'Connell has moved up the coaching ranks this year because he's getting, while very early, MVP-ish style of play out of Sam Darnold. So Kevin O'Connell, wherever you had him to start the season, we now acknowledge he's probably even better than we thought because we see what he's doing with Darnold. So then don't I have to take that same logic and think with Mike McDaniel, okay, so you were last year scoring 70 points, had Tua led the league in passing yards, scoring all these points, Tyreek Hill was going crazy, and we give almost all that credit, myself included, to everybody but Tua. We said Tua is just a product of the system, and they can't even score once it gets under 50 degrees. Well, fun fact, Tua's not there, and they can't score if it's over 50 degrees. Like, at some point, we have to sit there and go, hey, look, maybe we were wrong. Maybe Tua is a better player than we gave him credit for. Maybe Tua is more responsible for this offensive success than we gave him credit for. Maybe Tua is a bigger part of this franchise, this process, than any of us gave him credit for. Again, we all want to be right. We all want to have the correct opinion. We all want to have the correct take. But good organizations, and in my opinion, smart people, they take swing, they can be aggressive, they take chances, and when they're wrong, they say, okay, I'm wrong, move on. So I'm not going to say this is the only opinion you can have on Tua, but I think we at least need to start the conversation of, is Tua, and who knows if he's ever going to play again, obviously the nature of his injury, if Tua never plays another game of football, I don't blame him. But we have to start looking at him now and going, hey, look, is he actually the reason? We called him a detriment. We said he was just there. He was just one of the guys. But is Tua actually more than just one of the guys? Is he more than just a system quarterback? Again, same kind of conversation we're going to start to have with Brock Purdy. Because Brock Purdy's dealing with no Christian McCaffrey, essentially no Brandon Ayuk, who's off to a slow start. Debo's already missed a game. Kittle's been banged up. And the 49ers are still scoring, and he's still throwing the ball to pretty much whoever. Juwan Jennings had a 3-touchdown game. Like, some of these notions we have on system quarterbacks, which, in fairness, we all just make a little too early. We got to start rethinking some of this stuff. Maybe they're better than just being a system quarterback. They're more than just get the ball to Tyreek Hill. Because the way everybody was talking about it, and again, myself included, any of us should be able to make that offense work. Any of us should be able to throw a 5-yard out to Tyreek Hill. Anyone should be able to just get Jalen Waddle the ball. But I've seen their offense post Tua. Might be time to start changing some opinions around here. The other Monday night game, and I know this is going to feel like hating. I have the Detroit Lions, in my opinion, are a top 5 football team. And I think that primarily due to the roster. I said going into the season, I felt like the AFC was dominated by the top quarterbacks in the game, and the NFC was dominated by the top rosters in the game. And the Lions roster, which is insane to say just because of the time that I grew up in, is incredibly talented. Receivers, tight end, even if they don't throw them the ball anymore, offensive line, Aiden Hutchinson on defense, Jared Goff, Gibbs. This is a really talented roster. I argued it was as good as San Francisco's roster and maybe even better because they're younger than San Francisco star players. But last night was weird because I feel like they should have just dominated that game. Seattle had multiple guys out. I know Geno Smith, again, I think Geno Smith is the epitome of a good quarterback. I don't consider him a great quarterback. Jared Goff, I don't know if I have him in the great tier, but he's definitely, when protected, puts up great numbers. And so that should have been a blowout. That should not have been a 13-point game. That should not have been, you can argue it, but Seattle should have had no realistic chance to even get back in that game in the fourth quarter. And I'm starting to wonder now, is Dan Campbell the right coach? And hear me out. Again, I know it's going to sound like hating. It's going to sound like, what are you talking about? Dan Campbell has undeniably built a culture in Detroit. They're tough. They're physical. They have an identity. But situationally, clock management, there's some things there that just make me go, And we're living through it in real time with another NFL team who got to a Super Bowl, was incredibly talented, and when they had a great offensive line that protected their quarterback, he played at an MVP level, and now we're not even sure if their head coach, forget great, are we even sure their head coach is good? I said last week, Nick Sirianni is the biggest fluke of a head coach. The fact he got to that Super Bowl. I've seen so much over the last year and a half, and it's gotten so bad so quickly despite great ownership, despite, in my opinion, still the best general manager in the game, despite great talent on offense and defense. Sirianni, it's gotten so bad so fast. I think they got to Super Bowl 1,000% in spite of Sirianni. And so are we seeing that same thing with Detroit? Where because Ben Johnson is there and they have all this talent that we're just kind of overlooking, and we're giving so much to the culture of that Dan Campbell set, which was important getting them from bad to good. And there's a lot of coaches throughout NFL history who can get a team from bad to good. But this roster is too talented to not go from good to great to Super Bowl contender. And right now, there's just these little signs. That game against Tampa where they outgained them and still lost, which shows they're a better overall team than Tampa Bay. They have more overall talent than Tampa Bay. But they lost that game. Is Dan Campbell, again, he got them from bad to good and did that almost entirely off culture. But now you have real talent, a real quarterback, real playmakers. And is this defense ever going to get good? Like Aiden Hutchinson, it feels like this feels a lot like the Bengals when Joe Burrow first got there. Take away the rookie year because he got injured. But once you started to see Burrow, Chase, T. Higgins, they were showing playmakers. Then on defense, they had Jesse Bates, Hendrickson. Like, that defense is always sneaky good at least, even though it only really had 2 primetime players. And now we're seeing what the Bengals look like when they're down to just 1 primetime player, Hendrickson the pass rusher, and Cincinnati can't stop anybody. So, again, Dan Campbell got him from bad to good. He clearly set a culture. But is he the guy that's going to take them from good to great? And it's just giving me a lot of the same kind of feelings I now have about Nick Sirianni and that Eagles team, where I just feel like they were so talented, anybody could have coached them to the Super Bowl. Starting at these little signs to feel like that's where Dan Campbell is heading down. And I like Dan. And we all like the Lions right now because they were so bad for so long that it's like almost a feel-good thing for their fan base. We've all been fans of teams that go through rough stretches, but most rough stretches in the NFL are 3 to 5 years. The Lions were bad for multiple decades. So, again, I like the Lions. I love the talent they have on that team. I like Dan. But now let's see, are you going to take that next step? That's really important, especially you're not going to have rosters this talented that often.